G'day, welcome to Say It With Guitars. I'm your host, Pete Cornelius. Each episode I'll be digging deep and getting to hang with some of Australia's finest guitar pickers, songwriters, producers, collectors and makers. I look forward to bringing you these fun conversations and I hope you enjoy Say It With Guitars. Yes, g'day friends, how's it all going? Thanks again for joining us on the podcast. Also, thanks to those who have donated to the podcast to help keep this thing ad-free. It all makes a difference, so appreciate your contributions. Just in the city of Melbourne at the moment, in a noisy little hotel room. Played some pretty fun shows over here the last few days. It's been great. So today's chat is with Josh Munday. Josh is a Sydney guitar player, originally from Tasmania. And we get pretty nerdy here on the chat. So if you're not into technical side of guitar playing and guitar rigs and setups, you might need to fast forward here and there. But anyway, I hope you enjoy our chat. Before we crack into today's show, I'd like to shout out to our sponsor, Mr. Billy Tarrant from Tarrant Guitars. Billy's an amazing luthier and he makes some real sweet instruments. I'm lucky enough for him to have built me a 00 size acoustic guitar, which I've dragged all around the country and it's sounding better than ever. So yeah, check out tarrantguitars.net.au, Tassie's one-stop custom workshop for custom-made guitars, all guitar repairs and services. Let's get into the show. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. I'd like to introduce our guest today, Josh Munday. Josh, how you doing?
Good, thanks Pete. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too. Has been a little while since we last encountered. Must have been a little pub in Balmain, wasn't it?
That's correct, yeah. Last time I saw you play, and probably one of the first times I've seen you play as an adult, actually.
Yeah,
interestingly. Weirdly and interestingly.
Yeah. I still got memories of into the music store in Launceston and borrowing a bunch of pedals, and you recommended a stack for me to take home and try.
Did I now?
When I was a wee lad.
There you go. I do remember you as a wee lad.
Yeah. There was a chorus ensemble. There was a digital delay.
Necessary.
Reverb combo. Just trying to think what else there might have been. There's a few more Boss pedals, yeah. So you've been a Boss man for a long time, and you've actually been in that gig for a long time as part of Boss and Roland.
Yeah, well, that going back to that City Music thing, City Music in Launceston, I was there for maybe 4 or 5 years or something. I was there after I'd finished. After I finished uni. So I did music at uni, and after I finished that, I started working in the music store.
Yep.
But, that's when your dad used to always be a bright, shining ray of light coming into that store. I loved him coming in, Big Brucey. He'd always be he's one of those characters that, there's a handful of people I remember. Lots of people come and went, but, like working at the music store, I always thought it was a bit like being the bartender. Like whatever was going on, the musos would come in, they'd sit down and have a chat for a while, and you had your finger on the pulse a little bit from that. But Brucey would come in, always larger than life. He's just a great human being. That was always fun. And then I remember bringing you in. Yeah, I don't remember recommending the Boss pedals, but I remember interacting with you a bunch of times when you were young. And then only finding out later that you were I think you first appeared on my radar up here, maybe when you're doing something with Fender.
Okay, yep.
When did you start doing that? Yeah, like I knew of you. I knew you were doing some stuff and playing around and that sort of thing. But I think I only sort of saw your name in my sphere when you started doing some stuff with them.
Sure.
Which was cool. I was just like, man, is that? And I think Paul McShane brought it up to me. He goes, "Hey, Pete, what? Pete's doing stuff with Fender. What's going on?" And just found out what you were doing.
They were very open arms because Grant used to come down to the Narooma Blues Festival, Grant Cardwell.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and he'd
that makes sense.
See me down there and interact, and he's like, "Oh, you guys should come and hang out and come and say good day sometime in the I think it was down at Botany or somewhere like that, Botany Bay.
Yeah,
had a warehouse down there.
Yeah,
and like come come and say hello and come meet Margaret. And they had this sort of like a dealers expo happening at Fox Studios, I think, once, and we played there. And that was such a cool thing to be involved in, because you travel around. So we did that gig at Fox for all the dealers, and you drive around Australia on your, playing your tours and stuff, and you call into a music store and like, oh, Pete, we saw you at the thing. So they'd always like have that little interaction, and that was a nice little thing to have up your sleeve when you're walking to a music store.
It sure is. Yeah, when I started at Roland, so that was so I left Tassie, I think, in 97, and I travelled for a while, quite a long while. And then when I came back, I started playing a few gigs and that back in Tassie in Launceston. And I went, I'm going to fall into the same thing I've been doing for years here. So I'm going to pull up stumps and try something else. So that's when I moved to Sydney. And I only made 2 phone calls to 2 different wholesalers that we were dealers of in Sydney music. And one was Australis and one was Roland. And the rep for Australis, Richard, who I knew for years, was my rep down in Tassie. I called him and he gave me the good oil on the industry. He said, he basically said everything was screwed up and, don't work here and don't do this and don't do that. And it was just like a blast of stuff, which for years afterwards I taunted him about and thanked him for guiding my career. And then the second phone call was Roland, and they called me back. I was on the Gold Coast, actually. I'd moved up the Gold Coast for a little while, living there. And I called them and they said, come down for an interview. Nothing to do with anything I did, guitar playing or anything like that. It was purely, I'd worked at City Music as a sales guy. They were looking for an internal salesperson for pianos, of all things. Mm-hmm. And they said, so we're looking for you to come and do that. And I'm like, sounds great, I'll do it. So I didn't actually, and weirdly, I know some of those people who interviewed me still, because some of them are still there. And I do tease them because they didn't really ask me any questions about any of the gear I really knew, the Roland Boss gear, because I used to do quite a bit of programming. Like I was a keyboard player first, so I used to do quite a lot of programming for duos and different things like that.
Right.
And with Pete Ludby too.
Okay. Yeah.
So Pete was sort of instrumental in that. I mean, he was the oracle of all gear knowledge for me then, and even when I was at Roland as well, actually, for quite a few years.
Right.
So we did quite a bit of programming and that sort of thing. And I did some of that when I moved to Sydney for a couple of different agencies. I programmed some backing parts and different things. But I didn't get the job at Roland to do with anything like that, nothing to do with technology or guitar playing or anything. So I sat in that chair for a few months doing that job, but I was busting to do other things. So I've always, in that 25 years I was there, I've always been able to, and probably the reason I stayed so long was that I could always mould it to be what I wanted it to be. And it was that sort of company. I guess it still is, really. So you could go, well, I want to do that. I want to try doing a bit of that. And they're like, okay, give it a go. So from there, from internal sales or wherever I was, I went to tech support, which is much more probably suited to me in that way at the time, which was just, complaints department, tech support. Everyone calls you because they've got a problem. No one ever calls and goes, thanks, great product, just wanted to say thank you. So it's never that. It's by the time they're calling you, they're pretty upset and at the end of their tether about something. So that was a really interesting time of figuring out that tech support is as much about resources management. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know where to find the answer, and also how to control a conversation on the telephone, because if you let people talk about their problems, they won't stop because they're so angry and in a state by the time they've called you because they're frustrated and, so that sort of thing. So that was good to do. But around that time, I started to, I did some guitar stuff, and someone must have noticed that I could play guitar or something, because I never really pushed that. I'm just trying to think what order. It's so long ago. I think I did that. I started playing guitar, and with the marketing manager, we organised to do, he said, do you want to do a guitar clinic? Because at the time, guitar clinics had kind of shrunk. They disappeared because I think a lot of them. Well, if you saw any in the 90s and stuff, you'd know why. There are only two types of guitar clinics. One was a celebrity, where Tommy Emmanuel would release 6 new Matins and 400 people would turn up. Nobody turned up to see the Matins. They turned up for a free Tommy Emmanuel show, or you had the shredder guys that could barely string 2 words together but could play amazingly, and would ask you to buy their CD in the foyer, but it really had no clue or bearing about what they were actually supposed to be demonstrating. So I experienced quite a few of both of those sort of types of clinics over that time, and I went, there must be, the marketing manager at Roland, Mark Smith, he's a very clever man, and he was like, I think there's a market for making it about the gear, because I was nobody. I wasn't a personality and I wasn't a known clinician or anything. So he just started designing these concepts, and there were different ones like Join the Guitar Revolution, and it's all about tone and these different things. And they were about the products and the technology.
Yep.
So people would turn up for the application-based sort of version of that. So my first one was terrible. I think we had 20, maybe 15, 20 people or something at a basement of a store in Sydney, in the city somewhere. And I learned some harsh lessons from that, like be prepared, a lot more prepared than I was. But over time, I did more and more of those, and to a point where I was doing, I was probably doing 100 of those a year at different times. We did a lot. And then they built up to be quite good. They would build up to be, we'd at least have 100 to 200 people at each one.
Great.
Which was great. And I got very good at designing those hour-long demonstrations. And I had a formula, and you learn that they're more about a public speaking engagement. They're more like a stand-up comedy public speaking engagement than a playing gig, for sure, right? Yeah. Like most of your time is spent trying to keep people from falling asleep, trying to engage the guitar players in the front row who have their arms folded, knowing full well that they can play better than you. Like that, all of this, right? Like that. So for me, it was I'd try and design an hour-long demonstration that had a mix of maybe 5 products, because you have too much. People get confused about what's doing what and all that stuff. So trying to simplify it. So I'd usually start with the multi-effects, doing one of the medleys sort of things that I do. That's my thing. If I have a thing on the internet, that would be what I do. That's my thing. Those sound like medleys, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'd start with one of those. Maybe go to a recording product at the time, like a Boss hard disk recorder or something. Go to a guitar synth, right? So because I enjoyed that technology between synths and guitar. So guitar synth, I always thought I could explain those quite well. In fact, one of my favourite demonstrations of mine on the internet is a GR55 guitar synth demo, because it just encompasses so many things and so many great things to be able to explain and wrap it all up, and I really enjoyed that.
Sweet.
None of these are on my channel, by the way. They're all on stores' channels and other people's.
Gotcha.
Right. So that one I really enjoyed that one. But then I'd try and do maybe a looper, and then finish with another multi-effects, all singing, all dancing, playing thing, and try and keep people awake for an hour. And that's an interesting process, because the more and more you do, like anything like that, like a gig or anything, you don't have to think about it anymore or as much, so that you can think while you're doing it, right? So you can actually go, while the words are falling out of your mouth that you're normally doing, you can see the person who's bored, and you can go, right, I want to get that person. By the end of this, I want them engaged, right? You just start to find ways to, I guess, entertain your brain when you can do this stuff a bit more on autopilot. So I used to enjoy that.
Have you seen Greg Koch do any sort of clinic stuff? He's hilarious.
God, what a player.
And he can shred.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Yeah. And he's got a great podcast too.
7 foot tall.
He's a big boy.
Does he? No, I haven't seen that. No, I haven't seen it. I always found his demos very entertaining. Yeah.
It's called Chewing the Gristle.
What a player.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
That's definitely worth
sense.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I never saw him in person, I don't think. Or maybe I did at an AM show or something once. But yeah, he's always great. He's always on 10, isn't he? He's just like...
He's always on 10. Or 11
going.
even.
Yeah.
He's like on the Spinal Tap level.
Right. That's right.
So after years of doing that, was that kind of like inspiring you to write more medleys and sort of interact with the technology to put on a better show as such, or like a better demo, or were you trying to like interact a bit more with the crowd, like, or what was the thing that kind of kept you learning or kept you motivated in that sort of circle for a while?
Well, that's I was doing multiple things at a time though as well, which I always like to do. So I guess, again, that's why I stayed so long at Roland. So I did some of that while I was still doing some tech support. And then I went into doing some sales. So one day I just went into Glenn Dodson, who was the managing director at the time. I said, I think I want to do some sales accounts. You want to give me some? He's like, okay, which ones do you want to do? I went, I don't know, just give me a couple of small sales accounts. So I started to do that while I was doing demos, while I was doing staff training, and doing all sorts of stuff. So I was traveling a lot at the time around the country and around New Zealand as well a bit, doing all those. It was also in-store staff training as well on products. So it'd be product staff training, and then you do a clinic or something, or a workshop that night, and then move on and do the next one. But I always kind of had a day job back here as well, doing sales or something else. So that kind of grew to be the main thing, doing sales in New South Wales and in New South Wales and Queensland. But since I enjoyed doing the demos, I kept doing those because I just, when you feel like you're good at something, you feel like you've nailed it, and you get a lot of good feedback, and it's just that right, you got that loop going on, and because you're enjoying it, you're getting better at it, and all those things. So then it was obvious that I couldn't do that anymore. So we'd get other people in, so we employed other guitar people. So I wrote a training manual, present a training manual about how to do that and how to, do some public speaking, plus how to demonstrate. And that was fun. But I think it was 2009 when I'd been finished quite, a few years probably doing a lot of those, because I was doing mostly sales. We did the GT100 came out, and the GT100 Boss, the multi-effects GT100, we did that and a whole bunch of other products, and we had a dealer event. So, all the music store people would come in to Sydney, fly them all in, and we recorded it. And who else played there? Chet from Noiseworks, rest his soul, he's gone now. And also, what's his name? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Names escape me.
It'll come back.
But we had this event and we recorded all. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. It's Gray. What's his name? From Wawani. Oh man, it's going to kill me. He was great too, but he's gone now too. He was awesome. So all these demonstrators, it was great fun. We had sort of rock stars there, as well as me doing my thing and a few other people. It was great, and that got recorded and put up on YouTube. Infancy of YouTube, right back then, and. It started to get a lot of views, a lot of views. And because I wasn't doing that, it's kind of weird to have that afterwards. But because it's YouTube, you have no real sense of anyone watching it. Like you're watching views tick up, but it's not real. It's not like standing in front of a crowd of 200 people and talking to them and getting that feedback. It's just, it's sort of a one-way
like a radio show.
conversation.
You got no idea who's tuning in.
That's
hope for
right.
the best.
Yes. So it was that. So that was kind of cool. So that led to a few other things that I didn't really expect to be doing then. So that led to the ME80 launch, which was about 2-3 years later. The NAMM show. So I'd always gone to NAMM shows, but I never worked one. But that led to me being invited to release the ME80. So I did a medley for the ME80 and went over there and did the release for that.
Cool.
Which was full on. So that was great. It was sort of in the days when I was spending a lot of money on the NAMM show, and so you sort of dance and monkey. You're standing there like 5-minute demo over and over again. Go again. Here's another. But that was cool because like Guitar World's there and Guitar Player and people like that, and you're ending up on the front page of the website, of that for 5 minutes, which was the equivalent of me being on a Guitar Player magazine when I was a teenager. It was amazing.
Absolutely.
That was
big
great fun. So yeah. And that's I think that was the show that I played with Orianthe as well.
Wow,
so
okay.
So that was completely out of left field. That was so before I got there, they said, look, Orianthe's playing at the press release. I think it was press release or something, whatever. They had a big stage in there, and they said, look, can you play 3 songs with her? I went, yeah, sure, great. And in my mind, Orianthi was still the kid that I saw play at AMAC, the local trade show on the Gold Coast. You must have seen her when she was 15 or 16 play guitar as an Ibanez endorser or something. It's like, okay, this blonde girl playing Ibanez, a pretty good player back then even. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. So in my head, I hadn't joined the dots that she'd just been in, she was part of Michael Jackson's band that was about to do this tour. I just didn't really trigger. I just went, oh, yeah, she's recorded some albums. That's great. Yeah, I'll play 3 songs with her. No worries. Anyway, so I'm like, is she coming in for rehearsal? They're like, well, she might. I'm like, okay, she probably should, because it's like there's no band. There's just me and her playing. We haven't played together before, and I've just learned the 3 songs, but there's like a piano part in one that I've learnt. There's like, I think one's in drop D. I don't know, like, one's in E flat. I'm like, if she doesn't turn up, I've got some questions before she gets here.
Yeah.
Anyway, as the time was approaching, I think it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something. As the time was approaching, the stand started to swell with people. And there were cameras, like proper cameras, like TV cameras and stuff there. Like it was, and I went, oh, okay. Now I'm starting to understand that she's quite the thing here. I just sort of like, okay. And not that I weirdly don't get nervous. I think over time, if you're prepared, it's like any gig. You don't really get nervous. But the first one of any gig can be a bit nerve-wracking. Yeah. So I was like, okay, what's going to happen here? And it's like, I don't know, 20-1, and she's nowhere to be seen, right? And I'm like, oh, we're not getting a rehearsal. We're just going to get up in front of all these people that are going to record it forever and going cold. And I went, oh, okay. Then there was a ruckus out in the lunchroom, and she'd arrived, and people were around her and flocking around her. And I went, I just got to get to her to ask her these 3 questions so we can get up on stage and actually not turn this into a train wreck. So I sort of pushed through the people and got to her. So, hi, I'm Josh, and your guitar player. She said, oh, you're an Aussie, another Aussie. Went, yeah. Anyway, 3 questions. And I just said, this song, is it drop D? She's like, yeah, that one's drop D. I said, okay, is this one in E or E flat? Are you going to tune down for that? She goes, no, I think it's an E. Oh, unless my guitar tech has tuned my guitar to E flat. And I went, she doesn't know. Okay, great. I'm going to go up on stage. And I had one of the Roland guitars at the time that had a drop D switch on it, right? So you just go boom, and that retuned it. Okay. Sweet. And I had an E flat, and I had a -1 semitone setting on the ME80 with my foot hovering over it. I went, I'm ready for whatever's going to come out. Okay. She's going to start the song. I'll figure it out. And that video's up online. And I watch myself and I go, well, I'm pretty proud of how I did with that, because I don't look worried at all on the video. But I know what was going on in my head was like, internally, this could fall apart any second. Yeah. It's like the duck. What is it? Like calm on the top and legs paddling like mad underwater. It's like that. So she starts the first riff and I went, yep, E flat, there we go, click. And I just went, right. And then we launched into it. And she couldn't hear me and I could barely hear her. And man, and it's funny to read some of the comments. Some of the comments was from fans of her, obviously, like, oh, that guy, he almost ballsed it up on her or whatever, did the wrong thing. I'm like, man, if you guys knew what was going on up on that stage at that moment. And then she walked off, said, hey, thanks. She mentioned me. It was really nice. And she walked off, and I've never met her before or since. So, that's my Orianthi story. It's pretty funny. But it went well. It sounded great. She sang great. She played great. It was all fine, but it was just one of those moments where you go, if this is going to fall apart, it's going to be spectacular in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was that.
Yeah, it could have went
12. I think.
Could have went viral.
Yeah, for the wrong reasons. Yeah, could have done.
So you've done a few of those NAMM events?
Done some now. How many did I do? Yeah, I've been to NAMM a bunch of times. Yeah, but luckily I've been able to do that with Roland and to do Roland launch events and different things. But to work at it, maybe 3 times. I think I've been there. Okay. But the last time, which was I think 2017, I think it was the last time, something like that. And I actually got to script and audition or rehearse the demonstrators. So I'd been in touch with Yoshi Ikigami, who is the former president of Boss. He still has some stuff to do with Boss now. And he came to the Melbourne Guitar Show and see me do one of my demonstrations. I really like how it was structured. And I said, well, look, I think the structure is important, and I've got this training manual I've written, and I think we should do something with that. So I went to Japan for a boss event that we did, but then we sort of devised a bit of a plan to do that for the NAMM show to get me to prepare the demonstrators for the Boss room. I think it was the first year that Boss was having its own room because it's got more amplifiers and more products that was just Boss.
Sure.
So yeah, and back on with Skype then, it was pre-Zoom or anything else. So I scripted up these demonstrations for these maybe 4 or 5 presenters and prepared them, like we rehearsed that going into it, and then went over there and sort of ran that room for those guys along with Aaron Marino, who's a wonderful guy. He's part of the Boss team, has been for a long time. So just ran that room for a few days, which was great. So that was a different type of experience. I was doing a demonstration for the GT1, the little Boss unit, but that sort of that had prepared the other guys. Alex Hutchings is one of those guys. Have you seen Alex play?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, Alex is an incredible player, lovely guy, an amazing player. So he was there.
Check him out for sure.
Yeah, it was quite a. Yeah, Scott Gaylor was there. Who else? Laura Clapp was there. They might never watch this, so they won't worry about it. They might, and they might strangle me. Who are the other ones? Can't remember. Anyway, so but they were all great, and it was that was fun. That was the last time I was there, so that was pre-COVID. But yeah, everything else has been sort of still doing the day job here, still doing sales. And then I've been national sales manager for Roland for the last little while now. So, yeah, and then about a month ago.
One of your favourite products that you have utilised in one of these demos, or one that you think is like the hidden underdog of Boss that should be like in everyone's pedal board or everyone's system somewhere? Is there like one shining piece of gear that's going to outlast the time? Yes and no. There's different answers for different things there, I think. Yeah. There's my favourites, but then that's different. Like that's what just something that I like, not necessarily anything that's hidden. Well, I'm talking to
the
you.
The ME80 was a great one.
You, so ME80.
All right, cool.
Yep.
Okay, I'll tell you. The ME80 was a great one, and I really enjoyed that. It was really easy to get a great tone out of, and to try and get those. So that medley, one of the medleys that I did was on the ME80. That's probably my favourite one as far as sort of accuracy goes, because you're always kind of limited to what you can do by what's in the signal chain in those. And sometimes because it's limited, the ME80 is quite limited in the way that it's just knobs, right? It's like for somebody who's had pedals all their life and they go into the multi-effects, it's not that foreign because it's everything digitally is actually just controlled by knobs on the front, which is great. Just grab a knob, turn it, EQ change, gain change, whatever you want to do. Yeah. Something about that limitation though, because if you're given an infinite options like in software or something, you can just drive yourself mad, right? You never kind of stop. If you're rebiasing valves in the in the amp and that sort of thing in software, it's like, man, come on, because it's a lot of those sort of sound alike things. People are always, whenever I do one, there's always someone that goes, yeah, but it's not like having the real plexi in front of you and blah blah. They used it, blah 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, they did, and most of the people watching this are not going to. They're going to be able to afford a $300 multi-effects, right? Like, so just calm down. And also that's it's always been an annoyance to me that people would say things like that, because if you just plug that same gear in and stand in front of it, it will not sound like the recording ever. That's not how it works. That's not what happens. What you're hearing is a microphone in front of that in a room, in a certain room, at a certain distance, into a certain interface, or onto tape, or into
nice
a preamps, compressor, and
console.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And then mixed and mastered later on and all that. You are not listening to that gear as it was. Never. So to me, getting those tones, I think I said it once or twice, but I said it's irrelevant, kind of relevant what they used. And of course people got pitchforks and chasing you down the street when you say things like that. But it's true, really, right? Like you go, that's a Marshall-esque sound, cool. We might start there, but we might not end up there. We might end up with a Fender simulation with a DS1 in the front of it to get the same sort of tone. It doesn't, it really does depend. So ME80, I really like ME80, working with that, and I've got an ME90 right now. And even though I've left, I'm still in my head. I've got another medley to go. So my friend who usually does all the video stuff with me, Marshall Tate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Marshall, who co-wrote my album with me and produced my album, that's 10 years ago. So that's another thing. But he does a lot of video work and he's really good at it. So he's got grand plans for where this next one will be done. I think he's got all sorts of crazy plans, because now he flies drones with cameras on them, down mines and different things to do film things for people and all sorts of stuff. So he's got these grand plans. He did the last one that I did with him was there's a dueling with Mark Watson, who's the keyboard demonstrator at Roland, and he's the synth guy at Roland, and he played a guitar for it. Okay. So we filmed it on the Gold Coast, and it's like a dueling guitar keys thing. And he ended up, flying drones out the end over the ocean, and us standing there. It's over the top. I love it. So that's
the Gold Coast. Lots of fun.
So I reckon I've got one more. That's right. I reckon I've got one more in me anyway.
Yeah, wicked.
That's right. So
I'll have to look forward to checking that one out. So that'll be for the ME90.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Well, the ME90. Yeah, but I'm going to have a look at the Axe Edge and maybe GT1000. I think that's what the Jewel was named. But you'll find it like with drone footage and all that. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, ME90 is the next one I'll do, but I don't know when I'll get around to it. But it's floating around in my head. Usually takes some time, and then try and get the backing parts. Try and get some isolated guitar parts that gives you a bit more of an idea about how that fits into the backing. Yep. And that's also another part. Now we can hear isolated guitar parts, right? Nothing we could ever do for years. And now you can find isolated guitar parts and hear how different even they are to what you actually hear in the recording.
Absolutely.
How much top end, how much top end sizzles there that gets buried in the mix that you don't even hear. That's all of that sort of thing. It's like,
or even the low end. When you hear things in a mix, a lot of the time, there's not much under, 200 or 300 hertz sometimes, Whereas if you play a guitar in a room, it's going to be full of that stuff. So it's very deceiving, the tone quest, compared to old mate in his bedroom and hearing something on record and sitting well into a pocket, and it's great. I love it.
And a lot of those sounds never work. It is. It's a never-ending journey, right? A lot of those sounds never work well in a band situation anyway. A lot of these guys have downloaded my patches over the years, and they can come back with a variation of thanks, that's great, to this is rubbish, it doesn't sound anything like that guy, he's like, that's not what it was that he used. And I'm like, guys, you got to understand how this stuff works. It's all horses for courses, right? It's and a lot of those sounds, if you go and try and use them in a band, will be rubbish. They won't push through. They won't sound right.
Yeah.
They're about a place in time, which is a recording. Recording's an artificial environment, right? It's not real life.
As I look back, looking at the world gone by. As I look back, I wonder why. Where do people go? All the friends I call my own. Where do my thoughts go? Am I alone? I can't stand on solid ground. Where I'm being analyzed, no one can hold me, push me down. As I look back to where we used to be. Am I the same? I try to be, I try to see. Feels like I wonder why.
Speaking of recording, you mentioned a little bit of your own work 10 or so years ago. Tell us about what you've been up to in that field. Have you been writing your own material, playing with musicians around town?
I did with that.
Yep.
Well, I'm still playing it. It's just a cover band that we play sort of once a month. I can talk about that because I have a ridiculous rig that I take along to that, which I enjoy overcomplicating. It's just great fun. That's good. But the album, I remember saying when I was younger, if I have to get an album out of me at some point. And I remember as I got older, I went, I got to get an album out before I turned 40. And that did happen. But it took a long time in the writing. Marshall Tate, my good friend, he was, and with Paul McShane as well. Paul was there writing as well. So we wrote a bunch of tunes, took a long time to do that. And then once we'd sort of happy with, the 10 or 12, maybe 13 tracks or something, went into a studio called Electric Sun Studio, which I think is closed now, out west here in Sydney. And, Paul ripped through his bass tracks in about a day and a half because he's a machine. Nick Pancini, who's on drums, same, just ripped through the tracks. And then I took about 3 weeks to record guitars and vocals and everything else.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of keys on it, but mostly it's guitars and vocals. So I did all of that. And I couldn't be happier with the result. In fact, the result was better than I expected I could do, which is always a great thing when it's just, that's a blessing in my life, that album, because I listen back to it and I go, my God, other people can, I have the same thing with the video stuff that I've done on YouTube. Other people make me look great because they do great video work. Like I get up and just do my thing. All the work's done by these other people and the team of people. And that's been the wonderful thing at Roland. When I wanted to do something, I could just go, okay, this is what I want to do. I go back in and there's a team of people that can make it look fantastic. Right?
Sure.
So it's one of those, I feel like, like the little version of, actors that get up and they go, yeah, you can give me the award, but really it was about everyone else. And I go, really, was it? And then I do this and I go, yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
You stood up there for a couple of hours and people worked for like 40 hours and made you look good. So it's, yeah, that's been fun. But
that's so good
with the album, it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, because typically across the board, to record an album and to be 100% happy with it and to walk away and go, yep, that's the best work I could have done. Like it's a pretty rare.
That's hard. Oh no, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I could find 1,000 things wrong with it all the time. But in the end, they did. We recorded it, did the whole thing, and then they did a mix, which I wasn't happy with. I went, no, that's not quite right. And I think, my over-analytical brain took in reams and reams of notes of what I wanted for the mixing. So we redid it while I was sitting with them. And, thank you to those guys for all the patience that they had for me. Like the next day I'd come in with another page of notes. They're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I might only have one of these in me, so I'm going to keep on going. Right. And even then I'm not happy with some of the things, of course. So it's just like that. But I, overall, like tone-wise and all that sort of stuff, and, the songs catchy-ish, or some of them and all that sort of stuff, I'm pretty happy with how it sounds. So unless I can get another one out, I'm okay with that being the one that I have out there, right now in the world. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, everyone's got to make a record at some stage for sure.
Yeah.
It's such a great,
I reckon,
experience.
How many have you made now?
I don't know. Maybe 10, 11,
wow.
12.
I don't know.
I'm working on another one at the
I'm
moment.
just talking about my one and you're going, I don't know how many I've got out there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
There's a couple, and I don't know. I don't really sort of, notch my belt up to how many records I've done. You're only as good as your last one, really. So I look forward to making another one. And I worked as a session guitar player on a guy's record last week. We spent like 4 days in a room together, and 2 keyboard players, 2 guitar players, drums, bass, and the singer-songwriter.
Where do you record? Where are you recording yours?
I'm kind of doing mine a mixture between home and I'm working with a producer at the moment. I've never done that ever. Okay. So he's up around Gowrie Park. So I'm just trying that out, giving it a shot. He's got a cool space up his way. So, yeah, mixture of Marys and Gowrie Park.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find it. So I like the fact that that I worked with Marshall for this, because Marshall, besides being a very talented musician and songwriter, he's a finisher. Like I think it's the artist in me that wants to keep going and annihilate it, like into oblivion, because I won't stop and stop fixing things. I don't know how you overcome that doing it yourself. I don't think I can. I'm terrible at that. But Marshall's great at it. He's a real right, put bookends on that and that's done. I'm like, man, that's really, because I could do 100 more things to that. He's like, yeah, it's done. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So that's the Bob Clearmountain quote. That is, what is the mix is never finished. It's just abandoned. At some point, you've just got to stop, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great line. So true.
100%. It's so easy. And because, we've all got recording facilities, really. We've all got phones. We can all we've all got interfaces maybe, so we all have the capability to do that stuff and to tweak and to fiddle. It's so easily done. You need someone to go, all right, stop. This is great.
Yeah, for sure.
Enough said.
For sure, you do. Yeah, and sometimes you need to take your hands off the wheel, right? You got to get someone else to do it and go, okay, just take it away from me, finish it off.
Yeah. That was the intent behind getting a producer, and also just calendar dates. It's like today's recording day. Otherwise, it's like, I might just go up after dinner and do a few tracks or whatever.
Do some more.
Do more. So
that was good about the pressure of being in a studio too, that you're paying for. It's like, this has to be done. Right, this has got to be finished. Yeah, and there was a few moments even in that recording process where I was like, I would psych myself out in the studio doing things. And I went, I just need to. So there was at least one solo. I went, you know what? I'm going to do this at home. I'm going to go home tonight from the studio. I'm going to record this, record it dry, finish it, because I think I know what I want to do, and I'm psyching myself out for whatever reason in the studio, and brought in the dry track to play back through the amp. To reamp it and record it like that. Because I went, I'm really happy with that take, and I'm really not confident I'm going to get that same take in here. So just use that. So there was maybe one solo I remember doing that with. Not to say it's a great solo. It was just that's how I was happy with it in the end. And I find that it's kind of like the Olympic runner, right? It's like you've prepared your whole life, but this is your one shot to get that right that everyone will remember that you're going to be marked on. And it's like, man, that was probably what psyched me out. I just went, this has got to be the solo that I've got to listen to forever. Like, this is the one. So it's like, sprint, let's go. And I just went, no, I think I'd rather just do that at home in my own head, in my own space, and then bring it in and be happy with it. So I was happy that I did that at least once.
Nice.
But other times having Marshall to cheer me on and
Sorry.
I was just saying, sometimes having someone to cheer you on, though, is the right thing as well. Something they go, no, that was rubbish. Go again. Do that better. You can do this better. Go. So there's something in that as well, which I like as well. And doing that, even doing the content for Roland over the time, the best content that I got where I'm speaking to camera was where you had a good producer there. And that was either Marshall or another guy that used to work at Roland, Sam, and they were just great. And I'd give them the brief. I'd go, I need you to bark orders at me. When I forget a line, we'll stop, we'll go again. There's no personal offense in this. Let's just go. Let's just keep this going like that, because it will happen faster and better. And a lot of those times when you talk on camera, the time that you get it right might be the fourth or fifth time. And you might have done it right, but you're really incredibly boring to watch now. So go back and do it and put the energy that you had in the first take into it, because you got it exactly right, but no one's going to want to watch it. It's boring. It's like, so having someone to do that, I enjoy that. Someone to bark at me and go, yep, it's great, but it's not good. Let's go again.
Yep, 100%. And it's real time. It's someone going,
something.
Yep, great job, or do it again, And it's sort of, if you get the great job, thumbs up, makes you inspired and makes you sort of feel like you're there for the right reason. Yeah, there's something to be said for doing it with a producer. I definitely like it. And I understand why some people don't. It depends how you function. I've seen some people with the same people that did that with me. You see them get annoyed, right? It's like, you're taking this the wrong way. Like, you're taking it like they're telling you you're rubbish, but they're not. They're just trying to get the best out of you. You're trying to get the best out of you. So briefly before, you mentioned you enjoy taking your oversized rig out to venues. Your complicated No doubt, lots of rack.
Yeah, correct.
Let it loose. What do you got there? What's your weapon of choice in that department?
Anytime that anyone walks up to me at a gig and starts asking about the rig, there's a collective eye roll from the rest of the band and going, please don't encourage this because you'll want that 20 minutes of your life back. So I'm giving you that caveat before we begin because this is how it goes. And it's been named the USS Munday and all sorts of names they've had for my rig over time as it evolves and changes. And I'm such a tweaker, I tend to pull things apart like a couple of hours before the gig, rewiring things and stuff. And the guy's like, what are you doing?
Right.
I said, well, that's when it matters. Like, why didn't you do it yesterday? I'm like, didn't matter yesterday. Now it matters. It's today. The gig's today, and I'm thinking about it and what I want to be able to do. So, like rewire cabs into stereo and do different things. But, and I'll just for the bands, little panic. I'll usually post. I don't post much on social media, but when I do, it's usually of my rig in pieces on the day of the gig, just to give the boys a bit of a panic, just to see how they react.
Make them squirm.
But. Make it squirm. So I've always been Eddie Van Halen fan, right? And his tone as much as he's playing really mostly, because I don't really think I play like him at all. And I've never really tried to play like him, I don't think. I do a bit of tapping and stuff, but I don't learn a lot of his solos or anything like that, but I love some eras of his tone. And the era that I particularly love is not a particular favourite of Van Halen fans, I would say, for the most part. It's 50 on 50, which was when Sammy Hagar joined the band and they did a bunch of pop hits. But in that album, he uses the Eventide harmonizer. And so basically what it is one track's dry and hard panned, right? And then the other one's slightly pitch shifted and slightly on the other side. But unlike a chorusing, it's not, it's not oscillating.
It's not modulating.
It just stays there a few points, a few cents away. And that just spreads it out really wide as a stereo track with one mono guitar going, right? So that's
cool.
That's the sort of thing that I like to try and simulate live. So I've got, so I have two 412s. So it's in the whole rig's in stereo. I've got a 10-unit rack that's full, and I've got more stuff to put in it. I'll go through that in a sec. And I've got a head. At the moment, I've got a Friedman head, but I've got a Plexi that I've just had modified by Jason Tong at Head First Amplifiers. Check that video out. Check that guy out. My God, Head First Amps. Jason Tong. He's in Melbourne.
All right.
He's an incredible amp modder. So basically, he took the Plexi and made it behave itself because Plexis are tricky beasts to get to work with for the most part.
It's the 100 watt you're talking about?
No, it's a 50. I like 50s because you can crank them enough, without bleeding too many ears. But it doesn't. It's actually relevant in my rig because I bring it down to line level and do a bunch of things to it. So within that, and it also a variac, like to change the voltage.
Yeah,
which is what
I heard that
Eddie
was
used
part
to
of the
do
Brown
back
sound.
in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't use one at the old 100-year-old hotel that we play in though. Well, it's probably a 150-year-old hotel, but the power fluctuates a bit too much and you get volume fluctuations, so I don't use it.
Right.
But basically what I do is I've got the head, run the guitar into the head. It's not how it works because it's all through a patch bay, but basically guitar goes into head's cranked to wherever I want the sound of it to be, bring it down to line level through one of the SIR reactive loads. And that, so you can basically run it where you like the sound, bring it down to line level. So that goes back into the patch bay. Patch bay is called a switchblade sound sculpture. It's like a one rack space, 16 in, 16 out, all analog relays that you can route any which way, series, parallel, anything into anything.
Yep.
And that's sort of digital controlled at the front. So everything goes into that, and then I can route it however I like. So
cool.
I've got like a Boss. Yeah. So there's that. Basically, though, it's the guitar going to the amp, cranked, brought down to line level into effects that can stereoize it, then into another stereo power amp, and then out to the cabs. That's basically it.
Right. So you're sort of reamping it again through a clean power amp, with stereo into two cabs. Yeah, right. Cool.
Yep. So you can stereo split it and do stuff with it with the same tone. So you get like a consistent tone, other than a bit of power amp distortion from the power amp that you're reamping it with, and a little bit of the speaker distortion. But other than that, you can get that crank sound at whatever level you like. So kind of do that. and some effects I'll run in the front as well. So there's like a Boss GT1000 I can run in the front for any other effects and things that need to go in that. I've got some analog pedals. One of my favourite pedals, Boss pedal, is the Dimension. So the DC2W now, cool. The old DC2. Yeah, Dimension C. That is one of my favourite pedals in stereo. It's just super wide. Because it's not just like a normal chorus. It's like using a bunch of phasing tricks that they did with the, because it was the pedal adaptation of the old rack mount version of that. And the DC2W, the new Wazacraft version that was released a few years back, it's just got 4 buttons, right? That's all you can do, basically. 4 buttons.
No controls.
And you can combine 2 buttons. That's it. No controls. Yeah.
Yep.
And it just gets wobblier. Goes from basically still to, seasick, depending on how many, where you go with it. But also it has a switch that does the rack version as well, which is a bit more subtle, a bit more subtle effect. So that's one of my favourite to stereo split. That's great.
Cool.
I've got an old Rockman delay and chorus. That's like beautiful analog chorus. I mean, the DC2 is analog as well, but it's a really nice analog chorus, which I really like in that Boston sort of sound. So that's like a super stereo widener as well. Sometimes you just use delay, like small amounts of delay between the two. That can cause, depending on how short the delay is though, that can really severely change the EQ. So, like as you get a delay, if you do a single delay closer and closer, and this is a trick that I use with the medleys to simulate room mics, right? So when you can hear sort of a strong room mic in that recording, you learn to hear those things in recordings, don't you? You can, once upon a time you heard a wall of sound, now you can hear compression and delays and different things that are going on because that's as you sort of tune your ears to
train your ears up a bit,
Yeah, so that delay with the medleys, like with the GT or ME80 medleys, I'd use a single delay with no repeats as the room mic because you've got, a foot per millisecond of sound. That's how fast it travels, around that. So if you do delay 3 milliseconds, it's like having a mic 3 foot away from the speaker.
Yep.
So you're really getting the direct sound, but you can mix that in with it. So it's not quite an exact science because, bottom end goes away and mics change the tone. You can't change the tone, but, you can by running an EQ in the front sometimes, but that's super nerdy. But you can basically simulate a room mic by bringing that level up, and it can severely change the EQ. So so the Brian May sound, that's often what I do with that Brian May tone because he often sounds like he's in a small room and just the amp full tilt with his treble booster going. So that's often good with that because you can change the tone. And in fact, if you bring the level up and you change the millisecond, 1, 2, 3, or up to 9, 12 milliseconds, you hear the tone severely change each time you go a millisecond different. So that's what I try and avoid live. So you have to go like maybe 25 milliseconds for it to start not doing that. But then you don't want the slap. You want it just to be wide, so it's a bit of a balancing act between those two things. So that's mostly it with a bunch of other tricks.
But it's hard too because you're in a room as well, like it's sort of in a controlled space. That sort of stuff comes out really well because there's no crazy modulation or slap echoes in the room. But if you get out to a live venue and all of a sudden you've got this uncontrolled tonal, it could go anyway. So if you've got like a room emulation in a room, sometimes that stuff can just get overpowering.
It doesn't, and it's never consistent. It's like that thing, every gig sounds different, right? So your rig sounds different. It's always like that. But I like to, so that's not the complicated part.
But wait, there's more.
To me, that's fairly pedestrian, that bit. There's a couple of other weird things. I've got a rack wah in there, which I really like, the Duncan rack wah. But to control that, it comes with a controller that's like an analog pedal controller, right? Like just looks like a crybaby. And you can plug that into it and control it. But because I didn't want another pedal with the GT1000, I went, well, the GT1000's MIDI. I'd like to be able to control it with that if I can. So this is about as nerdy as it gets. So I found a way to use the MIDI control that expression pedal is, so the 0 to 127 or 1 to 128 control of the the MIDI parameter, and convert that to an analog signal to control the input in the back of the rack mount wah, which is a little box that synth guys use to create to convert their old CV gate pre-MIDI synths into MIDI. Right, so I use one of those blocks to translate the MIDI into voltage control, so I can go in there. And I've also got the toe on the expression pedal opening up because I don't want to be running through the wah the whole time. So it opens up a loop that the wah's in. So you click that down, it's like turning the wah on because it opens up the loop where the wah's functioning.
Wow!
And then you can control it with that. Click it again, that closes the loop down. So that's probably the nerdiest I've got, I think. Other than the fact that it's all run, because we run some backing tracks for keyboards, because we don't have a keyboard player. So Leon, who you know, Leon Witherington, the drummer, he's playing along to, 4-count in for him, 4-count in for us, bang, away we go. Because we've got that for some synth tracks and stuff in the background, I've got all my patch changes via MIDI in the songs, so I don't have to change them.
Oh, wow.
So everything is just like every patch just changes, solos change. I can use the wah or use the expression pedals for things, but it all just changes around me.
Man,
so
that would take off such a load. You just be able to just
so
be
it's
in
a bit
the
of
moment.
work up front, but
Yeah.
Yep. So I've done that with duos and stuff for years, even back with Pete Ludby back in Launceston. I even did that when we did duos and just program all the guitar. I was singing and stuff as well, and I went, just program all that in there so it just changes. You do it with keyboard, so you can do it with guitar. And I just kept doing that. So I also now use that to program the vocal effects as well. So I've got a rack mount TC Helicon vocal effects. So only delays, not reverbs, because you don't really want to be messing with that live. Leave that to the sound guy. But with specific delays at the end of lines and specific delays for songs, they're all programmed in there as well, that they change along with the backing parts. So that's fun. And I've also toyed with doing the DMX lighting thing because I figured I could do a light show as well, synchronised within those songs. It's just another level that I haven't got time to do right now, but I'll get to it.
Oh, you've had a few weeks off. What are you doing?
That's right, exactly.
Programming DMX lights. Man. Come on.
Exactly. Why wouldn't you want to do that with your time off?
Set out on a journey where I thought my love of this world was gone. I see now that I'm on my own. My journey started when I was born. I'm found though I was never lost. I fell though I was down. I fly but I am on the ground. I'm looking forward now. It's not that far. So here we are. So here we are. It's not that far. It's not that far. So here we are. So here we are. Take time to see what's around. And run no
It'd be interesting to do.
Insane. That's take my hat off to you, mate. That's the level of commitment prior to a gig. But I suppose, like you said, once it's done, you just turn up and you can be 100% in the moment,
freeing.
committed, and
especially if you got sort of effect patches that are for certain songs. Like there's something that you're only ever going to use once in a specific part of a specific song, and it's like it's up in 3 banks away from where your basic lead, clean rhythm and lead patches are in that first bank or so. If you start building those, they're somewhere else. So I don't want to be tap dancing to do that. So it just flicks to that and comes back again. And I find it makes the covers a bit more enjoyable if I have specific delays or specific effects that are in the song. That, like a silly example is like Summer of '69. There's like a pre-delay on the reverb as he plays the opening riff. Bump, bump. It's like bump, 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 bump. It's like it's a rhythmic delay, it sounds like, but it's just a pre-delay and a reverb.
Okay.
And I've programmed that in. So that otherwise song that you played a bazillion times that makes me want to, not play, becomes more enjoyable because there's things like that in it. So I do that for me. Yeah, that for me elevates my enjoyment level of playing, some standard covers that you've played forever.
Yep.
So there's that as well. Hello,
That's
man.
great.
There's a lot.
There is a lot. But you've got it all conveniently rack mounted, so just wheel it in, and it's not like you're doing 100 loads in and out the car or up and down stairs? It's like a pretty quick and easy lug by the sound of it.
It is. Well, it mostly is, yeah, and it's mostly all pre-done, so that the head's just being plugged in, and then the cabs have been plugged in, and everything else is kind of mostly done. And we play the same gig. We're down at Unity Hall in Balmain, which is a great gig. Long may it last. Just they let us play what we want, as loud as we want, and we have a great time. And
excellent.
That's a lot of fun. But there's going to be a point where I can't lift that rack anymore. I keep putting things in it, and it's getting to the point. It's getting challenging to put in the car. So I've got to figure that out. What that's going to be. It's probably going to be some sort of hydraulic, little lift thing on a trolley or something, rather than me stop doing what I'm doing. That seems unlikely. So I think it'll probably be, or hiring a road crew. Yeah.
Get a few ramps set up on your car. Yep. Get one of those.
That's right.
Yeah, like you said, hydraulic lifts.
Hydraulic lifts. Yeah, that would be a solution before not doing it.
Become friends with a removalist.
Yeah. Those guys, those big blokes that do piano moving. I need one of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
They can do crowd control as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So you've been on the other side of the mic a bit as well. I've noticed you've been interviewing some legendary guitar players. Is that for Australian Musician? Is that right?
Yeah. That's a wonderful thing that fell into my lap. That was unrelated to anything else really, as far as Roland or Boss or anything like that. Greg Phillips, who runs Australian Musician, wonderful human, and he mostly does all of the interviews that they do. He couldn't do one, and I got a text, a random Saturday, I got a text about 3 months ago to say, Brett Kingman, who does a lot of the Bergs, he does a lot of online content, right? So Brett's, great guy, great demo, great player. So I get this message from Greg, who's interviewed me a couple of times at guitar shows over the years. We've done a couple of things, but I didn't know him well.
Yeah.
And he just said, hi, Josh, Greg Phillips. Brett Kingman recommended you to me because you're a Steve Lukather fan. And I thought, well, there's an opening sentence, right?
Yeah.
What is that? You've got my attention, fair to say.
Yes.
And he said, look, I can't do the interview. There's a live one for Wednesday. Brett can't do it. And I'm like, what? He's like, do you want to interview Steve Lukather? And, I'm like, thumbs are burning. I was trying to type so fast to go, yes, please, I'm in.
Yeah.
And so he goes, yeah, all right, here's the Zoom link. Or send us the Zoom link and we'll do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm interviewing Steve Lukather. This is like, so and the brief comes through about what he wants to talk about and that sort of thing. It's like, cool, we're doing his new album. That's great. He wants to talk about that. So I listen to that. But then, ruin the next 2 days worrying about what I'm going to say to this man who's a guitar hero. And I'm going to be talking to him on a screen like I'm talking to you. It was so bizarre. And he was wonderful because he was very easy to interview. He's got a lot to say. He's got a bazillion stories. He's a very animated guy. And that was a wonderful soft landing for my first one where I was going, oh my God, this is not intimidating, super exciting, right? Just super exciting. But I'm going, man, I'm going to be talking to this guy. So that one happened. And then Greg was like, really like that first one. Is there anyone else you want to talk to? I remember he wrote that line. Is there anyone else you want to talk to? I went, oh my God, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You've created a monster, Greg. Let me write you a list. So I wrote Nuno Betancourt and because I knew they were touring, Vernon Reid, I knew they were touring with them, and Wolfgang Van Halen, and wrote all this down. He goes, yep, reckon I can get these two guys. That's sort of on the cards, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wow, okay, great. and then something else popped up and he said, oh, by the way, Steve Vai, can you do Steve Vai this week? I think he said, how's your week? Would you have time? I went, just presume my week's clear for Steve Vai. Yeah. I'll just make that happen. So whatever time that needs to be, I'm in. And they mostly happen at, like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning because it's the States and time. So it's usually, it doesn't usually interrupt your day. So, they usually have a brief about what they want to talk about, the tour, new album. Yep. So I'll, listen to it, write down a bunch of questions, and then you get through as many as you get through or you don't. But Steve Vai was cool. But I've always trying to find, and I did this with Luke as well, and I think this is kind of cool from my perspective, is because I'm not a journalist asking questions, I'm a guitar player asking questions. I can ask the sort of those journalistic questions, but then I've got some nerd questions I want to insert in there.
Yeah.
For two reasons. One, I'm genuinely interested, and this is probably the only chance I'll get to ask them. And secondly, I don't think many people ask them those particular questions. So it sort of takes the interview a little bit sideways, which is cool because when they're doing those press junket sort of things, they're probably saying the same answers to similar questions, 100 times in that week.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I figure
for
if
them
I can
to have
pull them
someone
sideways,
like yourself talk to them about topics that they probably wouldn't get to talk about, that'd make them excited and make them want to interact and have that conversation.
It seems to change things. And I didn't notice as much. A mate of mine was watching me, goes, they definitely changed when you said this. And I went, and each time it was something about gear. Yeah. So with Steve Lukather, it was about the EMG pickups. He went sideways on that and started talking about a bunch of things. I went, right, okay, yeah, this is cool, because he was part of the sort of founding people who was one of the founding endorsees and all that of EMG. Sure. And he's looking around the room at one point in the interview going, I think I've got it on one of my, talked about a gold top or something for a second. He's looking around the room. I'm like, please go get a guitar, please. And he's like, no, it's not here. It's in the other room or whatever. I'm like, damn it. But that was cool. With Steve Vai, it was like Yoshi, again, Yoshi Kagami, the ex-president boss, he designed the SG 3000, the famous rack mount delays that everybody used in the 80s, right? They'd used two of them to run them stereo because they were mono.
Right.
But he recently, in the last few years, Vi signed two of his and gave them to Yoshi, sort of saying, thank you for designing this. Because I knew that story, I put that story in, and you just see Steve sort of light up. He went, oh, you know Yoshi, and you know that story? And it was like, that felt to me like a bit of a turning point in that interview. So I always try and look for those. And I didn't really have anything with Nuno, but I did sort of mention a few things, and so he was fun. But Vernon Reid I'd met at the NAMM show, and I'd sort of mentioned that, and we talked about guitar synths, and he just went on guitar about like a tangent about guitar synths. He loves that stuff, right? So he's just talking about that. I'm like, well, I probably need to pull it back to your tour that you're supposed to be promoting, because he's just like talking about guitar synths. It was awesome.
I want people to come to the gig.
So
remember that
was
gig.
Nice. Yeah, that's right. You've got a gig coming up. You need to sort of. So Wolfie, I haven't got yet. Wolfgang Van Halen, that was about to happen. I had 3 false starts on that, and it's fallen over every time, as these things sometimes do because of their scheduling. But I think I've got Joe Satriani. I might be able to get soon because they're redoing the G3 anniversary tour of the original G3 tour with. Yeah, so I think that's the next one at some point.
Yeah, I've heard a few podcasts with Satriani, with Satch, and he seems like a really chill guy to talk to. I think it was like, it might have even been someone like with Greg Koch talking about his favourite album. Yeah. I think it was like Are You Experienced? And he just went on a massive tangent about Jimmy. I was like, this is great. To hear someone like Satch break that down and to talk about his early influences and what makes him excited about guitar and that sort of stuff you don't read in the magazines or you don't sort of see on YouTube because it's not like, high selling content. But for us guitar nerds,
that's right. That's right. Oh,
people who talk about their love of music and what inspired them and all that sort of stuff. I think that's such a cool insight. Hey,
isn't it? To get people that you look up to as far as players talk about the other people you look up to is because they have a different perspective on it too, right? And I've seen Satriani at a live sort of guitar clinic thing that he did once, and it's so obvious that he's a teacher, right? He's so good at conveying information and just talking about things and how he thinks about things. It was like, that's sensational. And just a great guy and a great player, and saying sometimes I wake up and feel like I can't play at all. Like I have those days too. I'm like, good. There's hope for us all.
He's human after all.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, but his not being able to play and our not being able to play is very different levels.
I'm sure they're worlds apart.
Yeah, for sure. But that's so that's all of those interviews things are just a happy thing that fell into my lap. Thank you to Brett Kingman and Greg Phillips for doing that and letting me keep on doing them, because they're they're just a joy of my life that I didn't do anything to get. They've just fallen out of, I mean, I guess I was the right person in the right place or something, but they've just sort of magic fairy fell from heaven to give me those. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's the same thing for this podcast. It's like I'm just getting to talk to people that I admire, that I look up to, or I have either had experience with, or I'm like breaking the ice and meeting people for the first time. It's such a great, I know, like I think communication and stories, it's easy to look past. I think if we can facilitate long form media and get to know the person behind the instrument, it's such a treasure. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It really is to hear some of that. I mean, especially, us growing up in that period where it was mostly magazines that you would find out anything, if you could find anything about anything. And there was always an angle. And like you're saying before, it was only what would sell. Yeah. Whereas now you're hearing what they actually did, what they were actually thinking about those things. I love that. Love a story. So that's great that you're doing this too, mate. It's awesome that you're just in there, part of that. I mean, I'm only part of it because of a happy accident, but you're doing it. You're treading the path and making it happen.
I mean, deep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are. That's good. Well, you got to be, right? Like, it's part of it. And you don't know what comes of it, right? You don't know what opportunities come of it. Yeah. And the fact that you're not even doing it for that is awesome, because that just makes it all so more organic and wonderful when those things do happen. And it is such a, I mean, life's like that in general, I guess, but certainly in our industry, those weird sideways opportunities that you had no plan for come at you, because of something you did that you had no clue about what that opportunity could have even been. So it's pretty interesting. In fact, after that, I saw a little window into that after that Orianthi performance at NAMM. I was at the bar that night with a bunch of people who were within the industry, and someone introduced me to someone as Orianthi's guitar player, which I am not.
Oh, really?
I had done that day, and someone said, "This is Orianthi's guitar player." As I went to say, "No, I'm not," in a noisy bar environment, this person started talking to me. And they'd been in a movie with Angelina Jolie, and they were talking themselves up as well. And I'm like, why am I in a conversation that I shouldn't be in? I'm not like, now I'm somebody, you're talking about to me like a somebody I'm not. And all of a sudden there's an invitation to go here and do this. I'm like, I got to back out of this, because I think this is going to go somewhere. But I just went, that's how those, but that's how those things could happen, right? You could go, I am. And walk on with that conversation and end up somewhere in the Hollywood Hills that night. And I went, I'm just not doing that. But I just saw how that could happen. No, probably too old for it even at the time, just going, I don't want to be waking up somewhere and, and I've got to work at the NAMM show the next day. I'm not doing any of that. So, but just to get that window into, here's how those opportunities happen. Like you end up in a conversation with someone and bang, you're somewhere else, and you're talking to someone famous and another gig's presented itself or something else. It's those things are on a spiderweb thin opportunity that just sort of weaves its way through sometimes. It's pretty interesting. And
you just got to have yourself available. Just got to be open and willing and open to learning new things and just sort of breaking new ground and like accepting. It has been great. I have had some opportunities come from the podcast, but also just to see people in the street, or maybe they come to my gigs and they'll go, "Oh, Pete, I listen to your podcast." Like, they're not musos, they're not players, and they'll just go, "I love the conversation," because it's two people who are passionate about something, and you're getting professional opinions, or and it's just like there's no bullshit filter. It's just people hanging out talking about stuff they love, and that's it's a solid thing.
It is. It's cool, and the right people will engage with that. That's right. But it is. You're right. It's not just us guitar nerds that it's interesting to, right? It's fans of music. It's people who are passionate about listening to music as well, and whatever other version of that, or just people who like hearing about other people's lives. There's all of that, isn't it? It's all fun.
Are you willing
a whole new world. Yeah. This long form podcast stuff, but it's good. It's it's so satisfying when you pull up your phone and everything just like flashing at you. It's all like 10, 15 seconds of they're trying to grab your attention. So it's actually nice to sit down and have a yak.
Well, it's like that's right. Been in someone's lounge room, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wanted to show you one thing before we go, however much time this is. There was the guitar that I've owned the longest, I think it is now, which was one of Jim Marshall's, not the Jim Marshall for anyone listening, the Jim Marshall from Tasmania, great guitar player. One of Jim's L-Series Strats.
Right?
Yeah, I've got one of his old Strats. And he did tell me recently, because I think he had 3 at the time. And
he had one nicked as well, stolen or something.
I think he had the rest of them nicked. He told me.
Oh, did he?
Shit. So I've got the last living one that he knows where it is. But I've had it for almost 30 years.
Okay.
So I think I was 21 or 22 or something when I bought it off him. 21, something like that. Yeah, and I'm 50 now. So it's recently I was texting him going, I've still got your Strat, blah, blah, blah. He's like, well, that's great because I got the other one stolen. I went, let me let you know that it's alive and well and still gigging, and it's a great guitar. I'll grab it. I'll just grab it.
Yeah.
So there were 2 guitars I got in the same year when I was young, which was this one, which is a December 63. So it's
beauty. Look at that guard.
60th birthday. 60th birthday this year in December. Yeah, so the guard, that's the only thing not original. That's not original. I've replaced those, but I've got the original ones because they just don't.
Yeah.
I don't take a hammering like I give it to it, but it's all scratched up. Most of that's me.
What a beauty! Is that refin or is that's an original finish?
They're refin. So if you look at where's the ding that will show you what it was underneath? Maybe there.
Oh, a bit of red under there. Fiesta red?
I think it's sunburst. I think it was like a black to red sort of sunburst thing, because apparently most of them were sunburst when they came here, and they'd refinish them with, I don't know if this is right, but it's like car paint. They'd refinish them with when they got here, because you would go, I want a blue one. And they're like, make a blue one. Like they'd paint.
Give you a few hours.
Yeah. So that's right. Yeah, you'll have a blue one in a sec. So that's why it's that. So I've seen a couple of ones that fade from this colour to the sunburst, the original. And I said to Frank Rubissa, who's great guitar player, guitar worker and luthier, makes his great guitars, his Rubissa guitars. So he's worked on this for as long as I've had it. I used to send it up to him when I was in Tassie. And I said, what are the chances of us being able to sand this back a bit to see the sunburst? He goes, you can't guarantee how that's going to go, and you can't go back if it goes wrong. And I went, right, okay, leave it alone. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But this, I had to have this, one of the pickups went. Right, it went. It was the neck pickup a couple of years ago. And took it to Frank, and Frank's like, you need to get it rewound probably. And I'm like, my heart breaks. I can't bring myself. So I think I just left it not doing anything for about 18 months because I couldn't bring myself to get it done. And then I took it to the man who does sliders pickups, Rob McQueen.
Yeah, he makes great pickups.
The guy's a magician.
Yes.
He rewound it, and I swear it sounds better than it ever did. It's amazing. So he just did a great job. He also a stratitis thing where it'd wobble on the bottom string forever. Nothing to do with the pickup heights and everything. Tried to have it fixed for years, and he fixed it because he changed the magnetic pull of the magnets in the pickups.
Wow!
I'm like, when he said it, I'm like hyperventilating. I went, "What do you mean you're going to do that?" He goes, "You can put it back. It's just a wave over. You can make it different again." I went, "Okay." And he's just like, he's such like a matter-of-fact guy. And I'm like, can you allow for the musician weirdness here? Like, I'm going to get all like, are you going to do, don't, he's like, okay, it's cool. Like, he was so nice. He was like, it's cool, I get it. And this one started to go microphonic. Sure. And I love this bridge pickup because I use a lot of gain with it, of course. So, so when it's going to go microphonic, I'm going to hear about it. And it started to do it, and I took it to him. I went, man, it's starting to do it. He goes, all right, no worries, we'll have a look at it and see. It might not need to be rewound. Have a look. I'm like, okay. And I think in the 70s, this was rewound a little bit hotter, like 7 or 8-ish, something like that.
Right.
Like a little bit hot. Apparently that was a thing they did in the 70s. I haven't asked
Sure.
him about that, actually. I should ask him. But he... so he took it apart and he sent me a text. I was in Tassie, actually, for Christmas. And he sent me a text. He's going, this thing's a mess. Like, it's fallen out of the bobbins at the side. Like, it's like, have a look. And he sent me a photo and I went,
Yeah.
it's a mess. I said, okay. Do you need to rewire it, though? And he's like, I can just rewire it, rewind it. It'll be fine. And I'm like, do you need to? He's like, no, we could just dip it in wax and hopefully it stays together for as long as you want it to. I went, again, please allow for the musician weirdness. Please just pot it. I don't want it to go away. So he said, look, one day it might fall apart, but that's so that they're original and that one's been rewound. But, but just an amazing sounding Strat. I've never heard a Strat like it. It's great.
That's
There's
fantastic.
probably another one out there, but yeah, that's a
Is it
that's
got
a wonderful
the
guitar.
slab rosewood board?
Yep. Brazilian rosewood back then. It's got quite a thin neck. Interestingly, they're quite thin that way, but this one's quite thin that way as well. Until it gets up to here and it's a bit chunkier. But everything else is. I've had it refretted a few times, maybe 3 times over the years. And there's the original clay dot inlays that are in there and all that stuff. It's mostly original, but it's a workhorse, you know. Maybe my kids will buy a house with it one day, but at the moment it's a workhorse. So I think the same year I got this. Within a year I got this and the 69 Les Paul Custom that I've got somewhere put away that I still play with as well. I remember getting this off Jim. Jim dropped it in for me to try at City Music. And I'm playing it and I'm like, it's kind of all right. And Darren Hill, who owns City Music, Darren's a great guitar player as well. So Darren was like, he goes, what do you think of the Strat? I'm like, it's not quite as poppy and bright as those modern Strats that I've played. He's just shaking his head at me. He's going, Okay, 2 things. He said, one, when someone talks about a classic Strat, that's what you're holding. That's an L series Strat. Like, that's the one. I'm like, okay. He's like, just buy it. You'll thank me later. But you don't know what you got in your hands. Just buy it. I'm like, okay, right. And he couldn't have been more right. And 30 years later, it's still mine. But I just remember that look on his face. I just remember the look on his face like, you don't know what you're doing. Just buy
these opportunities don't come up every day.
No, certainly not anymore for that sort of price. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been a good year. Anyway. So to get that and the Les Paul Custom in the same year, it's like, two life keeping instruments. For sure. And I've got other ones I play now and that, but this one and the Les Paul keep coming back to the gigs. This one I still play quite a lot because it's just a great sounding guitar. Yeah. There you go. Something about the Strat, man. Just those angles and the layout of the knobs and the whole thing just sort of feels like it's part of your body. Absolutely. That's what I reckon. It really does. It's out, and the curve. I've got a 92 Music Man Eddie Van Halen that I play quite a bit too, and that's it's like flat like the Telecaster, right? There's no there's no angle back here, and bruising every time after every gig. I'm like, there's some sort of forearm bruising going on. It's not from this because this sits comfortably. It's always even your ribs. They sort of like a hard tuck in under your ribs there. It's like, just contour it. Come on. That's right. Not hard, people. Yeah. I know. That's right. Still. Beauty, man. Well, thanks for showing us that. Yes, that's the Bakelite. Yeah, you're right. The Bakelite's starting to shrink as that does and pull all the screws in. That's what happens over time, I think they've said with that. Yeah. It's it wasn't quite made to last that long, I guess, at the time. No, Leo got it right. Yeah, apparently so. Cool, man. Well, thanks for your time today. I've had a good chat. Enjoyed. Me too, Pete. Hanging out, and if you're ever down this way again soon, look forward to catching up. Or if I'm ever in your neck of the woods, let me know when you're gigging again up here. Yeah, that was great to watch you. That was awesome. Seeing you live, man. You're a real powerhouse. It's great to watch. Hey, too kind. Really good. Thanks, Josh. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. Man. It was great. I bet seeing that gig, seeing you just play at that, like a little pub. I love it when you see that sort of thing. It's just like, a little pub with a few people there and then you just hammer and it was great.
I was like, and I'd seen you play a little bit on video, but I hadn't seen you play in person, being an adult. And it was great. Me and Leon sat there, had a beer, and just had a great time. It's fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, it's
long may it rain. Right? Long may it rain. It is, for sure.
Cool, buddy. Well, thank
you,
again.
mate. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
No worries, likewise.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening, folks, to another episode of Say It With Guitars. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast, share it around to your mates, leave a good review, and hopefully we'll see you next time.